all distinguished senators once again for their patriotism and their zeal to save Nigeria, and pray that the votes and proceedings and the content therein will bring lasting peace to Rivers State, and urge that all warring factions should sheath their swords and get ready to sit on a round table to bring peace to Rivers State in order to ensure that democracy continues to thrive.
Thank you.
Those in support of this request should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. Any more contributions? Any more contributions? So we put the question. Are we ready for the question? Are we ready? Those in support of this request of Mr. President as amended should say aye. Aye! Those in support of this request from Mr. President as amended should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
President, to single out Tim Fubara and the honorable members of the Rivers State House of Assembly for suspension without taking any disciplinary action on his minister, Chief Minister Wike, for gross public misconduct is a clear miscarriage of justice, and it is condemnable. If Governor Fubara and the lawmakers are facing a 6-month suspension, it is only fair and just that Chief Barrister Wike, the Minister of LCT, should also face a similar 6-month suspension. This move will ensure that justice is served and that all parties involved in the unfortunate crisis are held accountable for their actions. The President's portrayal of Governor Sam Fubara as non-compliant, while disregarding the misconduct of the 27 House Assembly members, is misleading and unfair.
The whereabouts of Sebelaye Fubara, the governor of Rivers State, is unknown to Rivers State. He has not spoken to anybody. We have not seen him. We are demanding that Fubara should come on television if he's alive.
All right. You know, these are the words and some of the development that took place yesterday about the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State and everything that has followed it. Talk about the legality of that decision and the ratification of the decision by both arms of the National Assembly, the implication on our polity, on Rivers State and on the nation as well. We have been joined this morning by a social commentator, public affairs analyst, but very importantly, he is a lawyer as well and a friend of the house, Dapo Ogunwuse. Thank you, sir. Good morning. Good to see you again.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you, sir. All right. Very quickly, I need your impression of everything that has played out since 2-3 days ago that pronouncement was made by His Excellency President Tinubu in that nationwide broadcast, where he gave his reasons, relying on Section 305, subsection 5, to have declared the state of emergency in Rivers State. The National Assembly, so many persons waited on the decision of the National Assembly yesterday, and they ratified that decision. Your impression so far, Barrister?
Well, I've never hidden my reservation about the attitude of the Tinubu government to the rule of law. And I was not disappointed in the least by how it went about the present actions in Rivers State. I'm also not disappointed by what came out of the National Assembly. I've said this several times, even on this forum, that the Nigerian National Assembly today is not fit for purpose. It is not a representation of the people of Nigeria. It is just a gang up of people who are just there to feather their own nests. and we are all seeing the results, but we have only just started. Now I start from the beginning. The so-called agreement between Wike and Fubara, was it in the interest of the state? Was it in the interest of the nation? No. It was a private, piratical agreement. And all the snippets of that agreement showed that it was never in the interest of the people of Rivers State. And people say an agreement is an agreement. Of course, you cannot agree to break the law. The law of contracts does not allow you to agree to break the law. Supposing somebody asks you to cut his hand, and you say because he has agreed and he has signed, then you cut his hand. Of course, you'll be arrested for grievous bodily harm. That is how contract works. Whatever you agree in a contract must be according to the law. If two people agree that you should be giving him some good 10% of all the resources of a state just for his own private coffers, how can that be a valid agreement? And you see all kinds of criminal people saying, he broke an agreement. Which agreement? That is question number one. Question number two is the involvement of Tinubu from the beginning. There was a peace meeting. Fubara tried to keep to all the requirements of all the decisions. The other side never bothered because they knew they were all playing to an answer. The Nigerian Supreme Court, in a 2019 decision, said that when there is actually a decamping or a mass rift in a political party, and members of that particular party had changed camp, that they stand to forfeit the seats. It was on that strength that Fubara went on to deal with 4 members of the House of Assembly, which was ridiculous. It was very bad optics. Okay, the Supreme Court made a judgment. And then crisis erupted that everybody feared. But the point is this: the explosions of on the pipeline, was it engineered by people loyal to Fubara? Nobody has given us a valid and conclusive proof. And there is a suspicion that it was all arranged to get this kind of results. Now let us come back to the declaration of the state of emergency, which is actually the topic. Section 305, Section 45. Section 45 and 305, when you read the two of them together, allows a president to declare a state of emergency. That is valid law. What it does not allow, and what cannot be excused in this particular exercise, and it has happened before in the past. Obasanjo did the same thing, removing Dariye. And it was this Tinubu that came out to condemn it. He did it when Dariye was removed. He also did it even when a state of emergency was declared in 2015 in the Northeast, and no governor was removed, no political structures were dismantled, unlike what he has done now. I will tell you emphatically, these are illegalities. The governor cannot be removed except by impeachment, except he resigns, except he's ill. Those are on Section 108 of the Constitution. But somebody has invented his own constitution. Then he also needed approval by the National Assembly, 2/3 majority of both houses. Something remarkable happened. He had already sworn in the administrator before the National Assembly approved it. Mm-hmm. And I raised an alarm on social media that no, this cannot be. These people need to wait for at least 24 hours to hear what the National Assembly will say. He went on and swore in the fellow. He just closed his eyes and did anything he liked. I've always said it that the country, the citizenry is surrounded.
Barrister Ogunwusi,
Yes, please.
please hold that thought. Judging by the events of the past couple of days, the declaration of the state of emergency by the president, and of course, the approval, the ratification of the National Assembly. Now, according to you, you say these people in the National Assembly are just there. They are not representing the average Nigerian. And a lot of people would quite agree with that. Now that the National Assembly and the executive have decided to toe this line, you just talked about the president swearing in the sole administrator in Rivers State even before approval of the National Assembly, which simply means he knew it was a done deal already. So now that we have this partnership between the executive and the legislator, Barrister Ogunwusi, what do you think the judiciary can do at this time to salvage our democracy in Nigeria?
You see, sometimes you have to ignore this kind of judiciary because there have been all kinds of insinuations about what kind of confidence the Nigerian populace still has in them.
But they remain the last hope. The judiciary remains the last hope of the people.
But before we go to that, when you talked about the swearing in of this sole administrator of Rivers State, you tried to put it as if, look, the man has not taken over anything in law because he was sworn in when he had not been appointed officially. That is how the law works, except the new Nigerian version of what is the law. So we now come to the issue of relationship between the National Assembly and the presidency. I've always said it on this forum that the National Assembly is a parastatal of the executive. Now, let's go to the Supreme Court. I have two corollaries. During the election petition cases, the presidential election petition cases, a famous judge said that social media, public opinion, is not justice. And I came out publicly to say he was wrong. My Lord was damn wrong. Public opinion is justice because justice is supposed to serve the interests of the same people. And I also gave a number of reasons for that. There have been two cases on earth which can be counted to be the biggest possible litigations ever known to man. The first one was the trial and conviction of Socrates. It was done by ordinary citizens, 500 of them, all kinds of stragglers on the streets, traders and roadside pimps and so on. They gathered 500 people and they convicted the most intelligent man ever created by God, possibly. They sent him to the gallows. The second trial, which was actually bigger than the first one I mentioned, was the trial and conviction of my Lord Jesus Christ. Even the judge said, I have found no fault in this man. And they still said, no, they wanted him, sentenced. So it was a decision of the jury, the ordinary citizens on the road, that counted. Which means that when a judge turns around, despite the fact that even the objective test in the administration of justice, the objective test relies on the view of the ordinary man, the man on the street. They call it the man on the Clapham omnibus. The views of the ordinary man. What would the ordinary man think about this?
Okay, so Barrister,
hold on, please. Now, when you had all of this together, you ask yourself whether it's even worth going to court for anything anymore. Because the results are so predictable. And the borderline of what is legal and what is not legal is being removed every day. They just do anything that will shock you, that will make you wonder, what kind of law is this? And the rest is left to anybody's imagination. Thank you.
Barrister, you said the voice of the people. According to you, the voice of the people. There's a saying which says the voice of the people is the voice of God. So we cannot underestimate the voice of the people, which is very correct. But in this case, if we do not have faith in the judiciary, okay, to save our democracy, what then can be done? I wanted you to address that point exactly, that in this particular case in Nigeria right now, what can the judiciary do right now? Okay, even if a lot of people have lost faith, according to you, you do not believe so much in the judiciary. But at this point, what can the judiciary do, okay, to salvage the situation and salvage democracy in Nigeria?
My fear is that the ring of encirclement is drawing closer and closer, and the entire polity is gasping for breath, especially by the recent events. Look, Tinubu just does anything he wants. And when you think like that, then the possibilities are limitless. I've said it before, the only group of people who are not important in this arrangement are the citizens. The president is on one side, the National Assembly is on one side, and there is fear that the judiciary may also be going along with them.
All right. Yeah.
The security forces also appear to be along with them. And the target, the victims, are the man on the street.
All right. Barrister, you used an analogy to say that the Nigerian people are being surrounded. How do you mean exactly?
Yes, you see, all the different power centers, all the different safety nets around the polity have been overrun. The National Assembly is in the pocket of the executive. The executive is rascally and greedy, and the judiciary is difficult to predict. And the security system has lost a mind of its own. I mean, they just ask them to do anything and they go and do it, including a lot of illegal orders. Children were rioting and were protesting, and then they arrested them and locked them up. They said they were hungry. Then they made sure they were hungry again for another 1 week or so before people now started shouting.
All right.
I thought we had gone beyond that.
Right. Point made, sir. You know, many talking points from this decision. The president, you know, he relied on Section 305, subsection 5 to say in two things, by the way, before I get to that. Number one, the law talked about the grounds in which state of emergency can be called. Okay, with the situation in Rivers, you know, the political turmoil, the tension, 2 instances of pipeline, you know, vandalism and all of that, the grounds of call for state of emergency, has it been fulfilled for anybody to say the president, you know, is right in doing that? And number 2, this Section 305, subsection 5, that the president quoted to say a president, you know, has the right, that this is me paraphrasing that particular subsection, has the right to call for a state of emergency if he has waited for the governor to reach out, and the governor over time has not done that, then the president can call me to do that. Does that include the suspension of elected leaders, governor, deputy, House of Assembly members? Because the AGF said, Latif Agbemi, why, you know, making a case on that, said there is a place, yeah, that talked about the president can use extraordinary measure to restore peace. That extraordinary measure is open-ended. Does it include the suspension of elected officials, legally speaking?
Well, with due respect to Learned Senior Latif Agbemi, some of these things are almost laughable. One section of the Constitution cannot be taken in isolation.
All right.
It is basic.
All right.
That there is a provision for taking extraordinary measures. And it may include anything, including the suspension of certain rights and privileges provided for under the law. Correct. The problem is that another provision of the same Constitution, Section 108, that proves how you can remove or suspend a governor. When you have a clash of these two interests, the way the law works, is that the less restrictive is followed. You cannot remove something that you did not put there. It's a fundamental principle of justice. These people were not appointees of the president, and they can never be removed by the president. And there is no provision of the law that expressly permits the president.
You know, I have to put that, sorry, sir, so that you can answer together.
During the time of Goodluck Jonathan, and the declaration of, was it 2015, on this Boko Haram crisis in the northeast, which Tinubu voraciously condemned. Nobody was removed. And that was the correct position of the law. That was the correct position.
Barrister, let me quickly... Sorry, let me quickly add, sir. The president in that nationwide broadcast added that, you know, while he has quoted the premises in which he has taken that action constitutionally, according to him, talked about the political angle and dimension to that, you know, I tried to mediate, I intervened, and the political bigwigs there, the warring parties ignored, you know, my intervention. That was the language he used. He said I was ignored, and so he can't, you know, keep on looking while things would degenerate in that land. And many persons, Pastor Busi, have said, you talked about the political, you know, stakeholders in these that have ignored your intervention. That includes Governor Sim Fubara, even the deputy that has been, you know, not really in the fight, has been suspended by you. There are some assembly members that have been at loggerheads with, that's the legislature in Rivers State, being at loggerheads with the executive, led by Governor Sim Fubara. All of them have been suspended. But many persons are saying, why has the president been silent on one of the critical stakeholders in that political structure battle? Yes, on Wike, that he has direct power over. If he doesn't have direct power over elected officials, he has direct power over his appointee, and he has been silent on the matter. Do you think that silence is too loud?
Yeah, it has been a very loud sort of silence, and the hands of the president have never been clean in this crisis. In the first place, Wike is a minister directly under him. Wike is actually the arrowhead of the crisis. He is the one trying to make mincemeat of the people and state of Rivers for his own private end. If he has left the place as governor, like he himself said in a famous interview, what business again does he have with all these agreements? Agreement over people's patrimony, over people's resources. We should pray that all such agreements must be broken in the interest of the people. I mean, Wike himself was just a nobody a few years ago when Mrs. Jonathan picked him up. I mean, how come he has become the owner of Rivers? He's just trying to copy the president himself, who became the owner of Lagos. So that's the way I see it. Wike is another name for Tinubu in Rivers.
All right, Barrister. All right, Barrister. Earlier on, Barrister, you mentioned the case of Socrates, who was tried and convicted by the masses, by the ordinary masses. Coming back to Nigeria now, we've seen what is going on, the posture of the executive, and of course, the legislative arm of government in Nigeria. And according to you, you do not have so much faith in the judiciary. In this case, what can the people of Nigeria do? What can we do in this case? Because as it seems now, please hold on, Barrister. If the judiciary should support, if they do not do anything, okay, to help in this matter, what can the average Nigerian do? That's number one. And number two, Barrister, as a legal practitioner, do you really think we are practicing democracy in Nigeria?
Yes, let me answer the last one first. What we have in Nigeria is not a democracy.
So what would you call it, sir? What would you call it?
It's just a disguised kind of autocracy. It's disguised with the veneers and the appurtenances of democracy. But when you study, go below the surface, you see that there's nothing called democracy. It's just the will of Tinubu, fully supported by all the various apparatuses of government in a conspiracy against the people. Now, what can the people do? We can only pray. Because if things get out of hand, these people will not even be affected. It is me and you who may suffer most. Because when there is a breakdown, you cannot control the flow. And that is deadly. And Nigeria, as it is on edge. People are hungry, they are angry. We must never allow the social seams to break loose. We must continue to pray and continue to tell truth to power in the hope that they will listen.
But Barrister,
my fear is that there's a famous statement by John F. Kennedy that those who make peaceful change impossible may make violent change inevitable. Absolutely. There will not be violent change in Nigeria by the grace of God.
Amen.
Because we are the ones who will pay the price.
Absolutely. But Barrister, Nigerians are very religious. We have been praying all along. But again, nothing seems to have changed. If we keep praying, nothing may change. So what necessary actions can we take as a people? Do you believe, because some people sincerely believe that only a revolution can change Nigeria. Do you agree with that opinion? Because some people will say, we've been praying for so long, nothing has changed. That these people we are praying for, some Nigerians are fasting and praying, and nothing is changing. So why then should we keep praying? We need to take our future in our hands. So what do you think? What do you say to that?
I just said we should continue to intensify mid-term measures, like talking truth to power when we can, and stop behaving like we don't care. So many people in the elite makeup are also interested in taking their own share of the national cake.
But do you think we need a revolution, Barrister? Do you think we need a revolution in Nigeria?
I pray not. I pray not, because what I see before me, if anything like that happens, it is, look, they will just look at you in a good car. And that's the end of it, despite the fact that you didn't take part in the imprecations they are complaining about.
Yeah, Barrister.
So that is a deadly thing. It's a complete breakdown of law and order, and anything could come out of it.
Right. So we hope we don't get to that point, and we are not.
Amen. I share your prayers.
I understand. And we are not by any means calling for that or inciting that. Now, before we round it off on this segment, many persons have talked about the mood in which that ratification was done yesterday. The Senate and the House of Reps. You have said your reservation about the crop of parliamentarians that we have now, but then that's who we are, that's who they are, and then we must hold them accountable. I'll allow you to listen to how it went down at the House of Reps yesterday with that voice vote, and we take it on from there. Please hold on.
Thank you. Those in support of this request should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. Any more contributions?
That was the way it went. Voice vote. Now, by the law, in the eyes of the law, many decisions are taken at the National Assembly through voice vote. But for something that has constitutional component, this is about history, this is about law, this is about Nigeria. Was it right that such a huge decision was taken via voice vote. And the only thing the speaker could say was their attendance was 243. And maybe because there was no nay, that means they are satisfied the condition of the law. Is that right? Voice vote.
You see, when you are talking of a particular requirement, it's like 2/3 majority of a particular, you must have 1/4 of the votes cast in 2/3 of the states in Nigeria. The only way you can ever arrive at that specificity is a head count. Anybody who went to school would agree with that. You cannot determine 2/3 by aye, nay. No, there's no 2/3 in that. And the irony of it was that even the high, I didn't hear anything in the high. It seemed like the speaker had voices in his own head. Look, the entire country is in a big mess. When will these people see the path on which they have embarked? There was no ratification yesterday to all intents and purposes. It will fail any test of law. Okay, the law says you must have 2/3 majority. You need to show the court how many people voted and how many people were for or against before you tell me you have got 2/3 majority. Minimum. And then they just say hi and nay and everybody went home. No, it is ridiculous. It is just ridiculous.
Ridiculous. If I may squeeze in one from the political angle, because we must go right now. Many persons have talked about it. The coalition comprising, that's the name they call themselves, Atiku Abubakar, Nasir Rufai, Babachir Lawal, Tanko, Dr. Tanko of the Obedience and the Labour Party. Many persons, spoke with one voice yesterday, and they said that decision, it is wrong. It stands condemned, and all of that. The PDP governors, and the party as well, spoke against that. And, the South-South governance, spoke against that as well. Only for the APC governor of Edo State to say, please count me out. I'm not part of that decision. But then looking at it critically, many persons will say the opposition at this matter have failed. And I tell you why. Are the concerns of the people to say, you spoke as a party, that's a PDP. You spoke, the governors forum of the PDP spoke, but you couldn't speak to your representative. Are you playing to the gallery? You know your assembly, your parliamentarians at the Green Chamber, you know them at the Senate. You couldn't call them and say, guys, please stand down on this matter. Let your voice be known, only for you to just grant a press statement. You came together and say we are against it without taking any concrete step, in the face of this alleged constitutional breach. Where does that leave the opposition?
It's very simple. The opposition today does not exist. And people will come out in accordance to their own selfish concerns. You saw it in the issue of the new tax reform. And that's how it's going to be, because there has been a deliberate effort to fracture the entire political firmament. You look at the obedient movement, for example, they are not playing the spoiler role that Nigerians expect them to play. Sometimes you see them raising their voices and then they fritter away again. And you can imagine what is going on. It's a ridiculous example of what Nigerians expected of them. The same thing is going on. The PDP has never been a party. And I can assure you up till now, it is still not a party.
So what is
just
it?
An
amalgamation
of interest.
Barrister,
just like APC too. Yeah.
Barrister, thank you for that. But again, now that it seems as though the institutions supposed to protect the interest of the average Nigerian, if the institutions should fail, I ask again, Barrister, what practical steps can be taken to save the nation Because we are supposed to be practicing a democracy. If we have institutions being controlled, being hijacked by power grabbers, or whatever we may call them, what practical steps can we take as a people? Apart from praying, I have nothing against praying as a Nigerian. I believe in God, I'm a Christian. But apart from praying, Barrister, what practical steps can be taken now to save this nation from this mess?
I think one of the steps we could take is something I said earlier, that we must continue to speak truth to power. I mean, there is a dearth of that now. Only very few people can raise their voices in the appropriate decibel. Everybody is just pretending, everybody is just afraid. But it does not mean that they do not feel the injustice. And that is very dangerous, even to the government itself. However, we must never allow things to deteriorate. These people will come, they will go. There's no way they will not leave power. If they don't obey the Constitution, they will obey the Constitution of God. The kind of Constitution that Abacha obeyed. It will still happen to everybody because we all have an expiry date.
Right.
We can only hope that we try as much as possible to keep the peace and salvage something of the country.
All right. Thank you, Barrister Dapo Ogunwose, social commentator, a lawyer, and of course, public affairs analyst. Thank you very, and of course, let me add, he is a veteran journalist of note. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and your take on this discourse.
Thank you very much.
All right. This will be the first leg of this conversation. This is the only country we have, and we must protect it.
Absolutely.
By all means. And that is what he has said. We go on this break. When we return, we'll speak to another critical stakeholder. Please stay with us.